Chris stood in front of the bathroom mirror, toothbrush in hand, half asleep. His reflection stared back, mimicking his every move. The morning routine was so familiar, so automatic. He hardly noticed the small things, like how the reflection's smile lingered a little too long after he stopped brushing. At first he dismissed it. Maybe he was tired. Maybe it was just the lighting. But the next morning, it happened again. He spat toothpaste into the sink, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, and stared at the mirror. His reflection didn't wipe its mouth. It smiled. Chris blinked. The reflection matched that, but the smile was still there, wide and strange. He stepped back from the sink slowly. The reflection tilted. It's Eerie, just slightly, then resumed copying him perfectly, as if nothing had happened. He didn't mention it to anyone. Who would believe him? The third morning, things got worse. He raised his right hand. The reflection raised its left. Normal. Then Chris scratched his head with his left hand. The reflection didn't move. Chris froze. His heart thudded in his chest. In the mirror, the reflection slowly began to grin wider. Not playful, not human, just wide. I'm just tired, he told himself. I need sleep. He skipped looking in the mirror the next day, brushing his teeth in the dark. Whatever it was, he wouldn't feed it with attention. That night, around 2 a.m., he woke to a soft creak. The house was silent, except for the wind tapping against the windows. He sat up, listening. The creak came again, from the bathroom. He crept out of bed and tiptoed toward the door. The bathroom light was off, but the mirror was glowing faintly. His reflection was already there, standing in front of the sink. Chris hadn't even entered the room yet. The reflection moved on its own, tilting its head to one side just like before. But then it did something new. It walked away. In the mirror, Chris watched his reflection step back from the sink and vanish into darkness, walking out of view as if the mirror led to somewhere else. Chris backed away, heart pounding. He locked the bathroom door. The next morning, the mirror was normal. His reflection mimicked him as it always had, and for a moment he thought he'd imagined everything, until he looked closely at his eyes in the reflection. They weren't blinking when his did. The reflection blinked after. Then it mouthed something. He leaned in. The reflection smiled wide again and whispered through unmoving lips. You've had your time. Chris stumbled back in horror. He ran, grabbed his keys, and fled the house. He didn't even bother locking the door. 2 days later, a neighbor reported lights flickering in Chris's bathroom. When police arrived to check, they found the house empty. Mostly. Inside the bathroom mirror, there was a man. He looked just like Chris. He pressed his palms against the glass and screamed. But no one could hear him. The house was silent, except for the wind tapping against the windows. He sat up, listening. The creak came again, from the bathroom. He crept out of bed and tiptoed toward the door. The bathroom light was off, but the mirror was glowing faintly. His reflection was already there, standing in front of the sink. Chris hadn't even entered the room yet. The reflection moved on its own, tilting its head to one side just like before. But then it did something new. It walked away. In the mirror, Chris watched his reflection step back from the sink and vanish into darkness, walking out of view as if the mirror led to somewhere else. Chris backed away, heart pounding. He locked the bathroom door. The next morning, the mirror was normal. His reflection mimicked him as it always had, and for a moment he thought he'd imagined everything, until he looked closely at his eyes in the reflection. They weren't blinking when his did. The reflection blinked after. Then it mouthed something. He leaned in. The reflection smiled wide again and whispered through unmoving lips. You've had your time. Chris stumbled back in horror. He ran, grabbed his keys, and fled the house. He didn't even bother locking the door. 2 days later, a neighbor reported lights flickering in Chris's bathroom. When police arrived to check, They found the house empty. Mostly. Inside the bathroom mirror, there was a man. He looked just like Chris. He pressed his palms against the glass and screamed. But no one could hear him. When Marcus pulled his cab over on the rain-slick street, he'd been driving for hours and was planning to call it a night. The city was quiet, heavy with fog and shadows, just how he liked it. That's when he saw her. She was standing beneath a flickering street lamp, soaked to the bone. Her long, dark hair clung to her face. No umbrella, no coat, just a pale blue dress, thin as paper in the rain. Marcus hesitated. She hadn't flagged him down, just stood there, staring at the girl. Oh, Capter, oh, Avros Christistas, to Sirap and roll down the window. You need a ride. She nodded slowly, wordlessly, and opened the back door. She slid in and gave an address in a part of town Marcus didn't know well. Her voice was soft, barely audible over the rain. As he drove, Marcus glanced at her in the rearview mirror. She sat perfectly still, looking out the window, her hands folded in her lap. She never once made eye contact. He tried small talk. Rough night to be out? You coming from a party? No response. He checked the mirror again. She hadn't moved. After a few more blocks, Marcus gave up trying to make conversation. The silence felt thick, unnatural. Even the usual city noises seemed muted. The radio crackled with static, and his GPS glitched, freezing on the map. Weird, he muttered, tapping the screen. The address she'd given took him to a quiet cul-de-sac on the edge of town. Old houses, overgrown lawns. Only one porch light was on. We're here, he said, turning around. The back seat was empty. His heart lurched. The door hadn't opened. He hadn't heard a sound. Rain still tapped softly against the roof. He got out and looked around. Nothing. No footprints, no movement, just the empty street. Shaking, Marcus walked up to the house with the porch light and knocked. After a moment, a tired-looking older woman opened the door. I'm sorry to bother you, Marcus said. I just dropped off a passenger, young woman. She said this was her address, but she's gone. The woman's expression changed. Her face fell as if a wound had reopened. Was she wearing a blue dress? She asked. Marcus blinked. Yeah. The woman nodded slowly, tears welling in her eyes. You're not the first driver to come here looking for her. That was my daughter. She died in a car crash 5 years ago, right near the street lamp at the end of this block. Marcus felt the air leave his lungs. She's been trying to come home ever since, the woman whispered, as he stood there in stunned silence. The woman turned away and gently closed the door. Back in the cab, Marcus sat still for a long time, listening to the rain. Then in the rearview mirror, he saw her again. In the back seat, soaked, silent, staring. Just outside of town, he became obsessed with one place in particular. The attic. It wasn't a normal attic. The door to it was in the ceiling of the hallway, with an old pull string hanging down like something out of a horror movie. His parents told him not to worry about it. It's just storage, they said. Nothing up there but dust and boxes. But every night, David heard sounds, scraping, slow, dragging footsteps, sometimes a faint thud. He told his parents again and again, "Something's up there." They always brushed it off. "Old houses make old noises, buddy, that's all." But the noises weren't old. They were fresh, alive. Sometimes they stopped when David whispered, "Hello?" One Saturday, after yet another sleepless night, David decided he'd had enough. While his parents were at the store, he grabbed the stepladder from the garage, dragged it into the hall, and pulled the string. The attic door creaked open with the sound of a coffin lid. Dust rained down. He hesitated, but then climbed. The air grew colder with each step. When he reached the top, he peeked inside. The attic was darker than he expected, lit only by the thin glow of daylight seeping through warped wooden slats. There were boxes, sure, But in the far corner, something crouched. It was small, pale, human-like, but not quite. It turned slowly toward him, and then it smiled. David nearly fell backward off the ladder, scrambling to the floor and slamming the attic door shut. His heart pounded in his ears. That night, the noises came again, but this time the footsteps were faster, closer, right above his room. He told his parents, begged them. His father got angry. "David, it's enough. No more stories. There is nothing in the attic." But the next night, David stayed awake, clutching his flashlight under the covers. Around 3 a.m., the attic door creaked open on its own. Footsteps descended the ladder, slow and heavy. He buried himself under the blanket, too afraid to move. The footsteps stopped outside his door. Then, nothing. Morning came. His parents didn't mention anything. They acted like nothing happened. So he asked again, "Didn't you hear it last night?" His mother finally sighed, eyes tired, voice low. "David, it's been quiet for years. You weren't supposed to wake it." That night, they didn't tuck him in. The attic door was open again, and someone or something was standing at the edge of his bed. It leaned in, whispered in a raspy, eager voice, "Your parents kept me up there for so long, but now it's your turn." The next morning, David was gone. His room was spotless, the bed neatly made. When his parents were asked, they only said, "He was always such a curious child." That night, if you were to stand outside their house, you might hear footsteps, slow, soft, pacing in the attic, and once in a while, a small voice whispering for help.